Well, there is a very NI thing that both INFJs and INTJs do, which is quite a good giveaway for their type. Admittedly, INFJs are more prone to it than INTJs are, and we'll understand why in a second. So it's quite possible that this particular item of behavior will be more indicative of someone being INFJ than them being INTJ. But, if INTJs don't have very developed TE, so this is already sort of a little clue as to what I'm going to be talking about, at least in part, it might apply to INTJs as well. So what is this like typical NI thing that INFJs do, and to some degree INTJs? I don't want to start talking about something abstract, like, thinking symbols and metaphors or whatever, something we hear a lot, which is true, but not always easy to translate into the speech and language of everyday experience, because it's not true that you meet people who are INFJs, you don't know they are, and you're like, oh my God, they speak in those metaphors and they are very mystical, so that's the giveaway. Those INFJs in everyday reality, they're not very common, partly because they keep those musings and those habits, which do exist, often to very private sphere. Sometimes just a few friends, sometimes literally just themselves and their private fantasy ideation. And here I'm really talking about something interpersonal, something social, something that can really be seen to constitute a giveaway that you can actually use as a cue. And that is the following. It's when you discuss a particular topic with this person that you don't know is, say, an INFJ. And you want the INFJ to engage with you on that particular topic. You want them to respond, you want them to engage, you want to progress further, maybe towards finding some common ground or solution. You can be discussing, like, for example, a particular historical epoch or a particular historical event, and sort of try to interpret it, try to understand it, or a political situation, or a particular moral problem that society faces nowadays. But the typical NI thing that an INFJ and sometimes an INTJ will do is to frustrate you assuming you're not an INFJ or not an NI dominant, frustrate you by seeming to answer in a manner that is off topic, rambles, circles around the topic, and tends to very much widen the context to big themes around that particular topic. So if it's about a particular historical event, they will start talking about the era as a whole, particular movements that spread over centuries. If it's a particular political situation, start talking about big concepts and things like that. And that can apply to just about anything. They will they ramble, they won't easily be able to quite finish their train of thought because it keeps sort of sustaining itself and pushing itself forward. And they will seem to wander off topic, and somehow in a weird way never go so off topic that you can just politely try to interrupt them and tell them, listen, we've really strayed far from the main, the line of the thread of our discussion here. It kind of always meandering and circling back, but the tendency is just to expand, right? It tends toward expansion, tends to widen the horizon in a way. It's just widen the horizon so that there's more space, there's more air. The sharp focus, in a sense, is lost sight of, or at least it seems to be, because we often hear that NI tends to have this laser focus. Well, it's not quite true that NI has this laser focus. If you like, it does have this converging vision, but the process of convergence can take a long time for the point, like where tapers, and there's a meeting there into an actual unified, more laser-like conclusion. That can take a long time. That's why people who think they understand INFJs when they think in terms of this laser focus, they're wrong if they think that, this is for every piece of problem solving that's required throughout the day, this is how INFJs work. No, that's not how they work. This phenomenon of convergence is something that unfolds over weeks and months. It's long. It goes like this, but if you're in the midst of it and and you are experiencing only a short segment of it, you might not even feel that there is convergence. You might think that there's more expansive rambling than anything. It's only if you show more patience then you will eventually start to notice that things converge. And this is how often you can tell that you're in the presence of an NI dominant. There's always a tendency to symbolize, to create connections that are not lateral, which is why you can distinguish it, say, from extroverted intuition, from NE, where you literally step outside the circle and go into other little circles and other little circles, right? You create like this massive spider web. The INFJ goes more like this, and then progressively the circle gets smaller and smaller, and then it's a point. But again, you might never realize that you got to a point in the middle of conversation, because it would probably take many hours, and it can be frustrating and seem like it's not going anywhere. If you experience this, of course, you might think that this because the person just don't know what they're talking about, and they don't know how to finish what they're trying to say because they don't really know what they're trying to say. That happens all the time and has nothing to do with NI. But if you get at the very same moment that you feel these things, that the person actually knows what they're talking about, and that they are confident about what they're talking about, that they're maybe not quite aware that you're not completely following their thread, but that they themselves are confident they're heading somewhere, which is another reason why you are loath to interrupt them, then that's often an indication of NI dominance. This rambling is very natural to us. It's a way of allowing the patterning of NI to do its work unhindered, in order to then converge into an answer, something that is also helped by the intervention of other cognitive functions. So it's rambling that circles back on itself, and if allowed to fully express itself over time, tends to contract until it reaches a final point. So that's the giveaway, and you can be quite sure that any genuine NI dominant will do this. With INTJs, sometimes that doesn't happen as much because TE is not a very wordy function in general. It's not a function that is as given to rambling as FE is, when in combination with NI, which NI is always a propensity to ramble more. Okay? Let me know what you think of this video. If you liked it, you can always give me a like. You can also give reviews to this book if you enjoyed it, The Infinite Soul, my book on the INFJ, my recent book, where I discuss INFJ life in the modern world, how to find happiness, purpose, meaning in this often hostile world. If you haven't reviewed it yet, you got the book, you liked it, loved it, please review it. It really helps with the references. If you haven't got it yet, consider it. It's a very nice product, look. And of course, it comes as a sequel. You can read it certainly independently of the Ecstatic Soul, but you can see from the covers that they complete each other. This looks more at what's inside INFJ consciousness and its existential manifestation. So for deep understanding of the INFJ mind, the Ecstatic Soul is pretty essential, but the Infinite Soul deepens it and brings it out back into the external world, bringing questions of ethics, happiness, meaning, and so on. I also have a Patreon page. This channel, to keep going, support is really, really important and appreciated. You can interact with me via Patreon. You can get access to some content only via Patreon, and it's only €3 a month. So it really, really helps me, which is why I mention it. So thank you so much to my supporters. And if you would like to support me, you have the option. There's also a little, if you would prefer one-off donation, there is the option to do that via PayPal underneath the link. Okay, take care guys, and see you soon.